the document I'm looking for also? Yes. Yes. Okay. It is now 7:40. I am going to call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gail Grandison. I am the chair of the Education and Youth Committee. First, let me say welcome back to everyone. For those that I haven't met that from the Youth Committee, I am going to ask everyone to please introduce themselves. So we have a mixture of people from education and from youth, and then some folks that were on both committees. So I'm going to start with what I see on the screen, moving to my right. Number ending in 87. Is that you, Mr. Barrett?
Yes, it is me.
Yes. If you can just introduce yourself.
Okay, this is Barrington Barrett, board member, youth service member.
Thank you. Ms. Charles? Ms. Charles, can you kindly introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Hyacinth, and this is my first time the community board meeting. So thank you for the welcome. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to being here and to understanding more about how you engage in the community. So this is sort of explorative and educational. And I thank you for the warm welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Are you a board member or you're just a committee? Just came in.
I am not sure. I think I filled out some applications and I started getting, but I mean, I think that the process didn't seem to be very structured. I never got so anyway, so I'm not sure if I'm a community board member or I think I am I'm not sure. I have to go through my emails because at some point I wasn't hearing anything, and the emailing, it wasn't very
Okay. We can help you with that.
All right, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Raddock?
Good evening, everyone. Patricia Reddock, board member, committee member. Oh, I'm sorry, Committee of the Youth Services Committee member.
Thank you. Ms. Lyons, could you introduce yourself also? I see you're next.
Nadine Lyons, community assistant.
Next to my right, Ms. McCain Brown.
This flu season, you do have a choice. Choose the protection, the Sanofi flu vaccine.
Ms. McCain Brown.
Which Sanofi is right for you?
Okay. All right.
She's having problems. She's been going in and out of the meeting.
Oh, okay. She stepped away. Next I see Ms. Bakradine.
Good evening, everyone. Joan Alexander Bakradine, Chair Emeritus for Community Board 17, Youth Committee member for many years, and board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mickle.
Hi, Miriam Mickle, committee member.
Thank you. Ms. McCain Brown, are you back?
I've been here, Ms. Grandison. Good evening, everyone. Monica McCain Brown, committee member of both youth and education.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. So next on the agenda, we ended last year. We did not have a meeting in June, in May and June, because we did not really have members that attended. So we do not have any minutes that carried over from the last meeting. So I am going to move over to the chairperson's report. So during the summer, we held 2 retreats. One was for the executive members and one was for the entire board, just to get everyone kind of familiarize themselves with the structure of how we want to move the community forward. We talk in terms about norms, utilizing norms to govern our behaviors during the meetings, to reduce any kind of biases and aggressions, and also to help build an inclusive team culture with us. And most of all, to create a psychologically safe space in which, we all have to exist in. We're hoping that we, foster engagement, commitment, and belonging, and everyone feels safe and open to express their feelings and, and to give feedback and to be part of this committee. For this year, our norms that we are going to start our meetings with is step up and step back, which it means where you can step up to talk, but you can also, step back to give someone else a chance. No one knows it all, but together we know a lot. I think that there's a lot of expertise among people on this board. People have really good ideas and inputs, and if we listen to each other, we can only move forward and be successful. Show up and participate in your effort to be your best self. Just come prepared to work and to be that board member. Just being your best self. Stories stay, lessons leave. So in terms of, you have ideas, you have input, but as we leave here, there's something that each of us can take from each other and just be respectful of all opinions. We can all agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, it should be that, we're just trying to reach that common goal. Another thing that we talked about was timing. And during the meetings, we were asked that we be mindful of the timing and, set limits for members to speak, especially when discussing lengthy topics and having guest speakers. For this committee, I do and I am very mindful of people's time. I understand we all have jobs. We're coming from work, we're tired, we've got families. So I'm going to lead by example. And when 9 o'clock, I want us to be saying bye to each other. If something happens that we need to take a few minutes or so, I want to be mindful that I do ask you if it's okay if we go over 10 minutes or so. But then also in the interim of that, I want to be respectful of Miss Lyons' time and that she's on the clock till 9 o'clock and not take the meeting over, unnecessarily. We're also looking, I'm sorry, if it looks like I'm not looking at you guys, I have 2 screens, so I'm kind of sharing them right now. So attendance. So we are going to follow the board's bylaws on attendance, and that is anyone that is misses 3 consecutive meetings without any excuses. You will receive a communication in the mail just giving you a heads up that, hey, you've missed 3 meetings. Kindly let us know if you want to stay on the board, if something is happening, if you have a personal matter, there's an illness or something. Of course, I am, in regards to that, mindful of that. And, we'll take it from there. But if there are, members who get on and doesn't get on the meetings at all, within 3 months, 4 or 5, we send out a first communication. If we do not get a response, then I will send out a second communication. If there's no response to that, then that person will be automatically removed from the committee. And we all know the reason with this, because a lot of us battled this last year where we couldn't get quorum to advance a lot of the board's policies or things that we needed to get passed. And, you know, that's a big issue because then it pushes things back. We don't move forward. So we're going to be mindful of our attendance and, you know, try to get things done in an orderly fashion. The other thing is, let's see, our events. So in August 4th, we had Youth Happening. It was a scaled down event as around maybe 400 kids or so, 400 participants. Unlike other times where I was told it was about 2,000 or so participants, but it wasn't as big as it was then, but it was a great you know, event. I was happy to see the kids having such a wonderful time and enjoying themselves. There's some takeaways that I have learned from that. One of the things that I need to do is to reach out to those organizations or the daycares that were in attendance. And I want to do a survey to get their feedback because I spoke to some of the chaperones from the daycares, and some of them had suggestions and ideas and stuff. And one of them mainly was around the food. So I want to get their full feedback to see what they're thinking, how they felt, and to bring that information once we collect that to the board to see if there's any changes that we need to make, or, you know, just be able to answer or to provide some of the provide to the feedback that we get. So I'm going to try to get that out by next week to those organizations, and we will take it from there. The other event I went to on Thursday morning, as you know, the first day of school was last Thursday, and Assemblywoman Waterman had a back to school event at PS 244. It was really good. So much cuteness in that schoolyard, but it was great to see our kids, you know, going back to school in full form, you know, without the hustle of COVID. And I also attended, I think it was back in August 20th or 27th. It was a Saturday. Senator Parker hosted a back to school giveaway at Prattigate Park also. That was pretty cool. There were children and families that were in the park attending that. And last Saturday, I went to the 6-7 Precinct Community Barbecue. That was held in the precinct parking lot. I'm hoping that there's some way that we can work with Ms. Ruddock and the principal to get more people, young people, aware of this and to attend, because I thought it was a great event. I thought it was really great. And, you know, I know that there's a lot of pushback on policing and stuff, but our community looks towards the police, right? They're like the first people we call when something happens. So I just want to say Ms. Raddock is on the line, that any way I can help, you know, market or get things out from my end, or help in any way, you know, to get our young people there and to understand the concept of policing, I am more than willing, you know, to take off my gloves and get to work.
No problem.
Thank you. And that ends my report for this period. Any questions, comments, statements, concerns around anything that I spoke about? All right, I am going to,
Sorry.
yes, Mr. Barrington?
I have a question which we had asked before June. The question: are we up to date to see how many members you have as part of the Youth Service Committee? Do you know that number right now?
Yes, we have about, I want to say it's about 14 people between education and youth. I am looking at that because I see tonight there's only 6 people on.
Okay, and my next question, you said you had 14 people, which is between youth and education. Does everyone participate in both? Because I know for me, I'm not part of the education committee. So my question is, I would like to know, like, how many people are on the youth service committee, and how many persons are still on the youth service committees? That's my question.
Well, being tonight is the first night, I think what I am going to do, let me just pull up the contact list as I'm looking at it, because I combined both groups. So the youth committee, the list that I got, it showed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I had
Okay.
13 people on there. For the education, we had cut down that list a lot because people weren't coming. I have, well, Miss McCain Brown and Miss Mickle were on education, and they told me, I know Miss McCain Brown said she was on youth also. But on the education, it was 1, 2, 3. It was about 5 people. I got a couple of excuses tonight from them. So what I'm doing as I look to see who is attending, we're kind of going to keep track.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm asking that question, because I should say for me, we're not sure who are youth and education members. So I'm saying, is there going to be a separation wherein you'll know how many youth service members are present at a meeting? Because if we're going back when you earlier spoke, you talk about we're going to go stick with the bylaws and what it is to have a quorum. So that's why I'm asking the question. Education is a separate application from, used to be a separate application from youth service. And I'm saying, are you going to be looking in to see how many youth education people are on the youth service and how many youth service is participating in the youth service, to let us know how do we arrive at our quorum. Just say, for example, you have 7 of us from youth service and you have 2 from education. Is that our quorum? I mean,
No.
on register, is that our, or you just go with it, whatever there you move with that amount of people? That's what I want to know.
No, the 2 committees have been combined as
The
one.
as one.
It's as one. So that is what will make up our quorum. I'm not separating anyone into 2 groups. We are all one.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
So
ahead, Ms.
when were the committees merged? Was there a vote that happened to merge these committees?
This was the chair's call.
Oh, is that how it's written in the bylaws?
I can't say for certain.
No, it's not.
But the 2 committees were
All right.
combined as one. Now, well, I shouldn't say I don't know. I didn't question. I was just told that they were being combined. I can look into it to see.
Granderson? Ms. Granderson?
Yes, ma'am.
May I, may I say
Yes,
something
go
or I
ahead.
have to wait?
No, go ahead, Ms.
I
Rudolph.
could go ahead?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
For the people who are in the room now, I'm not talking about those that are not here. Those that are that is together now, right now. I
Mhm.
think Barry and I are the longest ones on the board.
Yes.
We have committees that are legal, put it that way. I'm just using the word legal for the time being, which is a part of our bylaws, which comes down to us all the way through the city, to the charter, all the way down. And then we have some ad hoc committees, which was voted on and agreed on, which is fine, no problems. But if we combine the committees now, the way I'm looking at it, let's just, I can't remember how many legal ones we have, but let's just say it was 12. If we combine, whether it be these two or two others or whatever the case may be, then we're again going against the bylaws, because then we will not have the 12 that comes down through the city charter and whatever have you. But I'm saying that because the night, whatever time that it was decided on, I was not at that meeting. That is, I was in a lot of distress with my pain and everything. So I was not about two of those meetings. But the way it is now, it cuts down the legal amount of committees that we are supposed to have by the bylaws and also by city charter. So I'm just using fictitious numbers. If it was 12, we now have 10.
Right.
And if two others are ordered, because as you said, it was told to you, which I know that and I understand it, and I'm not putting any blame on you. And they just that ordering decided we're going to join these other two again. Then it's cutting it down from what the bylaws says and what city charter says. We could be held responsible for that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I hear you.
It has nothing to do with you, Ms. Grandison, because you were just told to do it, and I guess you weren't quite up with it, so you went along with who told you, but it was wrong.
Okay. So, yeah, I was told that the two committees were merging as one. And this is not the first time I heard this. During Mr. Ampaw's time, he had also, yeah.
No,
you're right. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
He had talked about that. So which I shouldn't have. I made the assumption that, there was a process that the chairs have, has the right or has the authority to make these changes.
No, he does not.
Okay,
No, she does not. What happened is, Ms. Anderson, you were the chairperson for the education committee, and let's just say when Mr. Ampol was there, he suggested it. You go to the education and you say it was suggested that we join with, okay, let's just say youth, and you talk it over with your group, and then you have a vote, and whoever is the chair of the youth services committee does the same thing. If your people say no and the other people say yes, it's scrapped, and it remains as two legal committees. Both committees have to agree to it, and then it could go back, and it has to still go through bar hall and all like that. So there's a process to it. But nowadays, nobody is following the process. Nobody who's supposed to be in charge. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you. So what I'm going to do, because I hear the concerns, and
not a concern, is a fact based on the bylaws. Because you mentioned the bylaws earlier, and that's why I'm saying we are going against the bylaws if this is the way we're running. Now, if you notice, beautification and parks was joined. The reason that was done, I was the one who did that, and I had to get permission, and I gave the reason why it combined, because the two people said they would work together. No one would have accepted that position. That's the reason we had to get approval from Borough Hall.
Okay.
You understand?
All right. So
we just put you on the right track. That's all we're doing.
No, I appreciate it very much. So what I'm going to do, I am going to take this back to the chair, look at the bylaws myself in terms of, combining committees. And was it Miss Ruddock or Miss that talked about the city charter in terms of the amount of committees?
Yes, I
What's in
said
the
that
bylaws?
between
We've
the city
codified
chart
it in our
and the
bylaws. That's where the
bylaw.
problem
Codify
comes
it in
in.
the
You see?
bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
See?
codified in the bylaws. Okay. Because you said about the amount of committees that the board should have. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I will definitely look into this. And I will send out an email and ask also Mr. Chair. Well, I see that we've joined by Mr. Lewis. Could you please introduce yourself, Mr. Lewis?
Hi, good night, everybody. Board member, committee member,
And Mr.
master,
Joseph.
master electrician.
It's good to see you.
I'm just here to promote the skill trades. Skill trades. That's my main thing for the education. Skill trades. And
Thank you.
city in school. That's career and technical education.
Thank you,
You see
Mr.
what I'm about, Miss? You
Yes,
see what I'm
Mr.
talking
Barrington.
about?
I'm sorry?
You see what I was saying? There might be confusion because what the gentleman just mentioned, that's not what the youth service or the education is supposed to be about. That's why I was surprised when they joined it, because education mission is a different thing from what the youth service. The youth service is to motivate the kids in the community. The education is to motivate the kids towards striving to the better quality of education. That was my understanding.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think I should leave it alone. I'm sorry.
Leave it alone, Barry.
No.
Yeah. I think I should leave it alone.
Wait, sorry. We're having too many conversations at the same time.
Miss Grandison, let's have a explanation as to what does education mean.
Mr. Lewis, okay.
Good night.
1 second. We're going to take this in order. Let me just get the other people that have joined, just to get them to say hi before we get into any lengthy discussion about what is education and any other topics. Ms. Duncan, can you please introduce yourself?
Great. I think you just did. I'm Mrs. Duncan.
Committee board member.
I am new to the committee, and I am new to the community board 17 as well. So I'm just taking in all the information that I'm hearing right now. I am a little lost, but
yes.
I'm sure we'll figure out and iron out all the kinks soon.
Yes, we will clarify in a minute. But thank you, Ms. Duncan. Thank you and welcome. Mr. Daly, our chair, would you introduce yourself and say a few words?
Oh, no. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today at our first youth and education meeting throughout the course of the year. I did hear some of the conversation that were happening regarding the rationale behind the combination of youth and education. And I will address some of that, I guess, at a later time or now, some of it now. But ultimately, well, yes. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and thank you for being part of moving the community forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daly. So before I get into anything else that's on the agenda, and because this, first of all, let me just say, I don't want us to feel this is us and them, education, youth, or what, because youth goes to school, they need education. We can explain it in many different facets of what the youth division did and what education is supposed to do or what. But before I get into anything else with planning, because if this needs to go any further or we need to halt breaks on having these two committees join, I'm going to ask Mr. Daly to address it, his reasoning behind it. You said you heard some of the earlier conversations of what was being said. I think there were valid claims based on the bylaws and the legal amount of committees that we're supposed to have within the board, and whether or not it was supposed to be a vote by the committees to combine the two, or do you have the authority to make those changes without, notifying the two committees or what? So I'm going to ask you to speak on this because I don't want to get into what is the plan for the year if things are going to change. So please, Mr. Daly.
Okay, so each community board bylaw is different. There's no charter mandate that says how many committees any community board needs to have. Some have more, some have less. The issue of whether or not I can combine committees is a question of, yes, it is within the bylaws for that conversation to happen at the board level, right? It is there that once you're making a change to the bylaw, that that it is to be voted on by the board, not necessarily by a committee. All I did in this particular case is follow through with the other committees, both chairs, Ms. Graham and Ms. Grandison. We did discuss the changes and what my intentions were, as I also continue to seek to see how we can combine other committees. One, we have an issue with quorum. We were not reaching quorum at neither the education nor the youth. There was an overlapping of committee members on the youth and education. 2, right? 3, youth and education essentially address issues around youth and education. So whether it's youth happening, whether it's the spelling bee, whether it's I give back to the young people in the community, it's all related to youth and education, whether it's going to be a college fair, a tour to, as we did in the past, to the Black African Museum. It's all related to education, career technical education. It's about youth and education, get them involved at the union level, letting them get started, getting an education in school. All of these different issues, the points that they address are extremely similar, with in some areas maybe a small amount of difference. And so as I looked at it, as I am looking at other committees as well, I'm looking at, one, to get the business of the board done. I mean, even last night we didn't have quorum at a meeting, and we can't continue to move the board forward if we cannot have business getting done at the board. And when I spoke to both Miss Graham and Miss Grandison about my intentions of doing that, right? It wasn't that it was like, no, we shouldn't do it. It was more of, okay, this idea is good, to let's get things done, because again, the overlap. And
so, Mr. Daly, before you go on, one of the things was said is that there should have been that question to the committees.
I'm looking at the bylaws right now. This is bad.
Yeah, bylaws, page 10, Mr.
I'm aware of what the bylaws says.
Article 4 of the bylaws says, all board members of a committee shall be appointed by the chairperson of the board and shall serve during the term of the chairperson by whom appointed. Now, there's nothing in this bylaw that says that you join a committee.
But there's nothing in the bylaws either, Mr. Barrington, Mr. Barrett, that says I cannot join the committee.
Mr. Daly, please look at page 10 of the bylaws
It
where
says-
it indicates the list of committees that
It says
our
the standing
committee board
committee.
has.
It says the standing committees.
These are the standing committees. So any
Yes.
changes to said standing committees either needs to be adjusted in the bylaws or by resolution. It can't
Yeah.
just be willy-nilly done. I know there was a very thoughtful process that went
Rampart
into it.
tried that and it came to us and it was voted down.
So okay. So I have let's say okay. You know what? It's a valid point. I will bring it to the board, but I'm trying to understand the complexities of moving the agenda of the board when we cannot receive quorum. I have quorum at the youth happened this summer. We literally had, I think, 3 board members.
Mr. Daly, that's a different issue. That's not
But it is
necessarily
still an
about
issue
quorum.
if you cannot. Not a problem.
It's also about managing the list and making
But
sure
it's
that
our community board, community board is one community board that has 2, and this has come up numerous times in different meetings that we have too many committees. So that also has to be addressed.
So are you telling me now then the next time you're going to combine transportation and public safety together? That's what you're saying?
I did
Get
not
a
say
quorum because
I did not say that, Mr.
we got to put in consideration that people have other things to do. Some people have family. Some people work.
That's exactly what I'm
Now,
saying, Mr. Barrington.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying. All I'm saying is when my time when you and I was chair and vice chair, and I combined beautification and parks, the reason we had a legitimate reason because it's the same thing we were doing, and we couldn't have enough people.
But
the quorum is not, and we still didn't have enough people to do it.
Mr. Barrington,
so
Barrington,
if
those are the
it's
same
on a
examples
quorum,
that I
we
just
still not
gave.
gonna make it. Cause tonight, if you look at the last list for back in June of how many people were on the Parks Committee, and look at the youth service attendance also, you will see you still don't have a quorum, even with the people that you remove.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, guys, hold on. Yes, Ms. Braddock.
May I say something, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the first thing is, at 8:30, I'm going to ask to be excused because I have a very important call that I must make. If I can come back on, I will, okay? But that's the first thing. The second thing is, I understand what's going on here with the commission. However, you are the chair of this committee, all right? And some of the things that are being discussed now should either be discussed with you and then come back to the committee. Secondly, when they say that there's not enough, when Mr. Daly says that there's not enough people at the committee and to combine the committee, it's not going to work. What we need to do is each chairperson of each committee has to go out there and either bring the people in, or when they come to the meetings, make the meetings interesting enough and that other people coming in to take over the chairperson's responsibilities. Because I heard that before, that when the chairperson tries to talk, there are other people who are interrupted. They need to let the chairpersons do their job. Ms. Grandison is the chair, whether it be both or one, but let her do what she has to do for now until this is settled out. Let her chair her committee and say what she got to say. Questions can be asked, yes. Answers can be given, yes, but some of the lengthy discussions is what's turning people off because it's not necessary at this level. And sometimes the chairperson has got talking down. Instead of letting the person run the committee, you have something, you make a note of it. You could call the chairperson later on if it's not something to be corrected. And I say, Ms. Grandison, I'm only using you as an example, okay? I'm not picking on you.
I get you.
Ms. Grandison, you said so-and-so at the meeting. I think so-and-so and so. Ms. Grandison is the one who, at the next meeting, should correct it. But that's not happening right now. I'm so sorry. I decided I wasn't going to say anything, but as long as I've been on the board and everything, I have to say something. The chairpersons need to be given more. Let them do what they have to do and the people above them don't interrupt at the meetings and tell them what to do. If you go on a correction, you write it down and you call the person tomorrow and say, you know, Ms. Grandison, while we were discussing, there are things that have to be answered right there and then just answer it and move on.
Thank
Understand
you.
what I'm saying, Ms. Grandison?
Yeah. No, I
As I
got
said,
you.
I'm not
Thank
picking
you.
at you, but I'm
Because
just using you because it's your committee tonight. And you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Daly? I know you're not going to understand me, so me and you have to talk one-on-one.
no, thank you, Ms. Reda.
I'm going to
Thank
come
you,
off
Ms.
at
Reda.
8:30. If I can come back, I'll come back, okay?
Okay, thank
All
you
right.
for that. But I do thank you for your comments because that is what I mentioned early about the lengthy discussion and time form. I only asked Mr. Daly because I heard some, the concerns of to why the two committees were joined together. And I thought it was only fair that, for people to have this conversation now before we start to move forward, because once I start to move forward, I'm not going back. And
I agree.
If there's an
I
issue
agree.
here that we need to clarify and to get straightened out, I would like to do it now, especially since Mr. Daly is on and he, is the chair. And this was, his decision. I think the issue that is happening here is that people are saying that they were not asked. That's the one thing I hear. Well, a couple things I hear. One thing is that the committee, that they were not asked whether or not they approve of it, and that based on the bylaws, as I was just looking at them, that we really should have taken this to the board or some kind of resolution to do this in a more legal way than just having the chair use his authority to combine the two. Now, I don't know what is the correct answer to this, but as I said, I'm going to look in more to it. I am going to have a conversation more in depth with Mr. Daly because we hear what people are saying and what they're feeling. And, my whole thing with this, the education and youth, I do not want the youth committee members to feel that the education, that what we do it's not part of youth, right? Because I see that these are, the youth goes to school. The youth are our kids. And, when I was told that when we were doing Youth Happening and I asked, well, what's the age group? I was told 1 to 12, right? And these are, our babies or preschoolers or kindergartens, middle school, elementary. This is in this group that, I sit here and I try to advocate for on every front. I think what I struggle with is understanding how everyone is seeing the difference, right? With the two groups, like what is the difference between youth and education? And that's my struggle with it, because when I hear youth, I hear all the kids.
Exactly.
I hear all of them. Right. I don't categorize in name. And if there's something that you used to do that, when you're talking about the youth, I'm looking at the school kids because I heard 1 to 12. And that's my demographic also. But I want to be fair and just, get the feedback from everyone, because I feel like there's something stronger than just joining these two, something more in the works than these two committees joined together. There's something more to it. And I want us to be open about.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
Yes. Here's a suggestion I have. Miss Brown, McCain Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is a former educator, or still an educator. Could you ask, if she's hearing us, could she explain to her what would she consider the difference between education committee and the difference of a youth service? My understanding might be different. Because my understanding is that youth service deal with socialization. Education means with the knowledge of you preparing yourself for whatever educational challenge you have. But I'm saying, seeing Ms. Brown is one of the persons that we know was involved in that. Could you ask her now to just give her what is her definition of that, how would she combine it? We just want to hear.
No, not a problem. Ms. Brown, Ms. McCain Brown, do you want to respond to what Mr. Barrett was saying?
I can. Just remember, this is just my humble opinion. Again,
Yes.
based on what he said.
No, that's why we asked you
Judgment,
to do it.
My
no judgment here.
professionalism, education, I think they sort of overlap to some extent because we're still educating youth. So I think that there's some things that the two committees can benefit from. I think it depends on what direction we would like the co-committees to go in. But I think they can be interplayed, and youth can benefit from the education, and the education could benefit and have benefits for the youth. My particular thing, if I may put in my piece now, I heard what everybody said, and I think that it was really unfair that it was really, and I've been attending both meetings. I think it was sort of unfair, though, to just have it done without any input really from the committee members. And I think that was not something that should have been done. But in
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
And
Because when I came to the board in '95, that's what I thought it was, two different things. But anyway,
thank you, Ms.
let's
McKee
get it
Brown.
done and keep going.
And
All right, that's my piece tonight.
thank you, Mr.
Sorry to
Barrett.
make you
And
trouble.
I think that that's what I was trying to get at when I said what's the real reason. I feel that there is that sense of not asking the committee what, about the change and how they felt about it, and just going ahead and making that decision. So let me ask the question. Ms. Mickle, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Go
Right
ahead.
away, because I find that joining the two committees, is a very good thing, because they're both interrelated, and both groups will benefit from each other. Is there a way that we can come up with a name for the youth and the education committee, and come up with one name rather than to say youth and education?
Then we have to change the bylaws.
Okay.
Right. There are some changes that would have to be made, but can I just get just hear how many people do not want the two committees to be joined?
I reserve my opinion.
Well, Mr. Barrett, listen, with me,
No,
there's
I'm
no
only saying I
shame
reserve my
between-
opinion. I don't want to change it. I reserve my opinion. I just want to know why, because Mr. Umpar tried to do that before. And what we're saying, there's a bylaws, and we have to combine with the bylaws. We're not working with the bylaws. It's out. I'm saying my understanding when I came to the board, that the mission of education and the mission of youth service was two different things.
Yes.
Now when you combine it, we don't know if it's the same idea. That's why I'm asking.
The change.
And I'm surprised Mr. Daly couldn't give us a clue more than the attendance, because he's an educator. From I know Mr. Daly, he has been an educator.
Okay.
He
All
was
right.
also my vice president when I was the chair of the board.
Okay, Mr. Barrett, thank
You
you.
understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I do apologize. I do need to step in here as Chair Emeritus. I must also alert you that I also attempted to do this when I served as chair, to combine the two committees. And I had people telling me they would leave the committees, they would not attend the meetings because they are accustomed to doing it on a particular day. They think the two committees should be separate, and they gave specific reasons. So it is not for me to provide their commentaries, for you to check with the committee members yourself to determine whether or not those are still the issues why they did not want me to combine the meetings. So, and I take offense as well, as Ms. McCain Brown did, is that we were not consulted, that this was just indiscriminately positioned for us to accept. So I just wanted to make sure that I was on record. I do apologize, Mr. Lewis, but thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Ms.
Brackerdine.
Brandon, I'm going to have to go.
Yes, Ms. Rada.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I just have to say I'm just going to say one thing before I go, may I, in case I don't get a chance to come back?
Yes, quickly, please.
I had told you when we spoke before to call me, because there are certain things that, lack of time, you can't say at certain time because you're at work and whatever have you, but you never called. But me and you will deal with that later. But for instance, there was a program with the teenagers concerning law and enforcement, which we did with the cops. We can't have 6-year-olds at that particular function. 6-year-olds cannot be at that particular function. I'm just using one of the differences to show you a part of it. If we can come back, then that means if we have a function like that, we have to leave out the little ones. And if we have the functions for the little ones up to 12, we have to leave out the teenagers because they're not interested in that. We have to say the kids in the summertime is in daycare center and also with clubs and, those type of things. They need an out away from that. So we got to give them something for their age group. The 14, 15, and 16-year-old, they're not interested in that. They're going to come and say, oh, I am bored. This is boring. Anyway, I got to go. I'll call you back. If I don't call you tonight when I come back, if I'm finished the meeting, I'll talk to you again, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Where you going?
So I was going to get into what was planned for the year, but I want to hear from Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, quickly, your thoughts?
One of the biggest issues that we have, a lot of the times, the same folks who are upset or angry or not being heard, they don't attend the meeting. So in Mr. Daly's defense, based on what was going on, we still didn't have quorum whether or not people will respond. Even if you went to the independent committees and asked them what they feel, you still have the same thing over and over again. And in order to be a better board, in order to be not the laughing stock of the rest of the community boards, when you look at this is the first meeting in the year. We didn't even have a housing meeting because nobody attended, right? Even if you don't want to do nothing else, at least the first meeting of the year, you could make the effort and come out to do whatever. Now I understand all of the reasoning as to why, you should talk to this one and talk to that one. But if you're not attending the meeting, who you will talk to? So the issue that we having is that people who want to be heard don't attend the meeting, but vex when something is done. So maybe this is the talking point that they need to get them back into being a part of. Maybe I had to get them vexed. Maybe I had to get them upset. But you will get a response because, again, if we are not doing what we need to do, as far as I'm concerned, the education part, the youth, and everything else, yes, there's a social aspect, but you're educating them on how to be social. Education is a key part in the entire committee from all down through all of the committees, because education is you learning something new or you're learning something that you did not know. So again, is to try to separate it and so forth. I see already there's a disconnect because you miss out in terms of, yes, you have young people, but you talk about the 14, 16, and 17-year-olds. What about the 18, 19, and 21? What about those? Those are young people too, who are in a different demographic also that we're not mindful of. So again, we have to understand how to be able to be nimble and get out of our feelings. This thing about being addressed or being spoken to If you only have 3 people in a committee, the committee can't have a quorum anyway to say they don't like or they don't like. And then if only 3 people vote on it, then those who say they are part of it, they vex still. So something had to give.
Yes.
Yes or
Well,
no?
thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you
Brandon,
for those kind.
with all due respect, if I may just add something to that.
Yes, Ms. McCain.
And you spoke about respect at the beginning, and I think
Yes.
all need some respect. So irrespective of those people who do not show up, people like Ms. Mickle, myself, if I may say so, showed up at meetings more or
Yes.
less throughout.
Yes.
And I
You do.
should have been given the respect of being asked. So I hear Mr. Lewis. Yeah, there are people who don't show up, but still those who are there, we do need some respect in terms of what takes place with the committees. So I think, we all have some points to make and give, but I think respect is very important. And I think I would reiterate, we should have been told or asked, or it should have been brought. Yes, we heard, but I think that they would have been very respectful if we were involved in the process, even if it's
Okay.
of us.
Thank you, Ms. McCain Brown. Mr. Daly, and then I'm going to just move on quickly.
Okay. So very quickly, I heard every single point that was made. One, I am the new chair. So that means I took over in June. It's not a concept of that I've been doing this, and in the middle of the year, I made a change, right? I made a change at the onset of my inaugural year to say that we're going to do that. 2, so therefore the discussion amongst the group to make that happen, when was that supposed to happen? Okay, unless I individually call. I looked at something based upon the 2 committees that I am a part of, both the youth and the education. 2, second thing, the age group of every event that is done is based upon the age group of that event. So when we did summer youth look for the youth committee, it was only kids were eligible to be part of the SYEP and up. When we look at going to the African Museum on the Education Committee, we included all families who are eligible, who wanted to go. When we look at Youth Happening, we look at the younger age. When we did the spelling bee, we look at age group 2nd grade, I believe it was, up to middle school. So things are addressed throughout the course of the year that address everybody. The second component, because Mr. Barry did bring it up, and I'll say this, education has 2 components. And most people only look at one. And that's probably one of the reasons why our system fails. Our education system has the social component, right? Kids have to know how to socialize effectively in ears, have a conversation with a police officer, have a conversation with the community, socialization, as well as what it means to be educated, as in a classroom learning your ABCs. We call it reading, writing, and arithmetic. So that combination of education is fully loaded for everyone. And whatever it is that you're doing, you earmark the age group.
Right.
On either level, whether it's a college tour, a high school tour, a middle school tour, a job, a career day, whatever you want to look into, all of those things are involved in a school. Every single one. And so when I look at it, that's what I looked at. And so, and again, I hear the complaint, Ms. McCain Brown and Miss Bakradine, on both conversations that it has been attempted in the past by the 2 previous chairs. I understand that, and I hear your concern that it was not. But there, like Mr. Lewis says, where was the discussion point that could have been had? We never had quorum. As a matter of fact, we didn't have quorum tonight.
Do you ever find out why the reason we don't have a quorum tonight?
No, Mr. Barry, don't say it's because the meeting's combined, because we didn't have a quorum.
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question, just a simple question.
We do have quorum.
We have quorum now. Okay, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, we have to check the attendee lists against who attended 3 meetings, then you're removed from the committee. So we never actually got a list of of who is actually contained in committee members.
I know I'm going to stop talking, Madam Chair, but I just want to make this one point. Ms. Bakradine, I am talking about the fact and Mr. Barrett, I'm speaking about the fact that I attended both the youth and education committee over the last year. And I could almost guarantee you that we did not have quorum about 90% of the time.
I'm sorry, sir, but did you reach out to the people that actually attended
Yes, we
these
did.
meetings?
Yes, we did.
You reached out to me?
About with the merger?
Yeah.
I
did
didn't
not.
get that.
No, I did not. No, I
No.
did not. I spoke to the chairs.
Okay, so I'm going to end this discussion here because what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a further discussion with Mr. Daly around this. I saw that, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name incorrect, Tashina Buffalo?
Hello, hello.
Hi, just introduce yourself. Let us know whether you're a committee member or board member.
I'm trying to get the camera going so you can see my face, but it's not working.
It's okay.
I'm a new sign up. I signed up recently.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just a new sign up.
Oh, well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Education and Youth Committee meeting. Let me just address some things. So we kept talking about quorum and the members. So what I did, I have not taken off anyone off the youth committee list. I didn't think it was fair of me to remove any names because I didn't have the information of who did or didn't attend what amount of meetings on the youth committee. So I kept everyone on there, and the email that went out went to everyone. I got a couple of emails back or texts saying that people that they weren't, going to attend the meeting to date asked to be excused. And as I said before, I combined both lists, right? That's how I am planning to proceed with whether or not we have quorum throughout the year. Now, the other thing I also heard was about the age groups and having events, socialization versus education, and that the different age groups. So this is just going to lead me to go into what I wanted to talk about. So some of the events that I had planned for the year is the Spelling Bee, and the Spelling Bee deals with from, was it 6 to about 12. But this year I had planned to include high schoolers, to add a high school group to that component. The essay writing competition, which is something that we are going to partner with Officer Barry, or I should say Officer David and P.O. McNeil. This is something that I used to work with Officer Barry with every year doing the essay writing competition. And we're going to partner with her, with the officers on this one. It's not a full load for us. And that is that goes from elementary to high school. Then there's the CTE forum that Lewis had. This is something that we were trying to do from way before, and this is going to mainly focus on our older kids, right? So those who are in middle school getting ready to go into high school, because it's all about those young people who are not college geared towards college, but can have a career in some kind of technical field, right? We had Kids and Cops conversation. I put that back on because I know that was something that the youth committee did. I thought it was a great idea to have those kind of conversations. We have youth happening. And then if there was anything else that you guys, in terms of actual physical events, but I thought that that was quite enough for the year. We had our fill there. And then in some of our meetings, there was one meeting that we were going to do a principal meeting night. And then if there were maybe one or two other meetings with a guest speaker on relative topics. And one of the topics that I was looking at is, now that we're in the age of weed, cannabis, or whatever you choose to call it, is how that is affecting our youth. Because now we're finding that our young people, because lead is illegal in New York State and across many of the states, that we are finding more young people are smoking weed. And we want to see how is that affecting the mental health and just physical health in all, and what can, what's the effect of that on their development. So those were some of the things, the things that I had assigned for us. I hope that they fit into the category of the age group, whether it be education, advocacy, or it be social or emotional aspect of learning. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Good.
Quick question. Did you mention youth happening? I don't know if I heard that.
Yes, I said youth happening.
Okay.
So that's the way that I thought of for the year, to just, and my whole thing is that I want to incorporate from 1 year, from birth, pre-birth, whatever, those age groups, toddlers, babies, up to perhaps that 21 years. Because then also the other thing that I want to, for us to get out and around, it's not much that we can do, but SYEP. I think that SYEP is something that we need to push in the community for our young people. We have a lot of businesses in the community that are not aware that they can hire a young person or two from the community during the summer to work in their business, and that the money does not come out of their profits, right? It comes out, city monies from DYCD, and that giving that young person that opportunity to have a meaningful summer where they're able to have some money in their pockets, that is something that we can work on within the community for our young folks. Mr. Lewis, is your hand still up from before, or did you have something else to say? Because I saw you.
No, in terms of the time, when are you projecting the time for that CTE forum?
So I wasn't thinking not till next year.
Right. So February is National CTE Month, nationally and through the city, which is Korean Technical Education. So
well, then that's something we would have to start on right away. And I know that you've been asking me about this for such a long time. And I told you I will give you the reins to, be the one to spearhead it. We will talk, and anyone else on the committee that wants to assist you with it. But we will need to get that rolling, because we're talking about a forum. And if we're talking in person or Zoom, you let me know. Zoom, I'm sorry, I keep saying Zoom, WebEx, or whichever platform we use, that is fine. But if it's in person, there's more work to be done. There's speakers, we have to get, there's location then to be found. If it's just a Zoom forum, then it might be a little easy, because it takes away some aspects of, doing physical work. So we can talk a little more offline about this and see how to move forward with it. But I am giving you the go ahead to spearhead this, in which you will need to let us know who are the speakers, and if you could just give me something outlining what that, maybe it's an hour, right? What that time will look like, an hour, hour and a half, and the date and stuff. Fair?
All
Okay,
right.
thank you. Mr. Daly.
No, just a point of information. If sometimes when we fail to know that within the special education system, students with special needs, they can be in school a little bit older than 21. So I would say that instead of saying
Okay.
21, might want to change that number to 22, unless we're talking about college age individuals. So I just a little point of information.
Okay, when you say special education, are you talking?
So when you're talking about school age children, and you say like up to 21,
Well,
right?
I'm sorry, I should correct myself because that's college age
No, but
mainly.
I'm saying, but in high school, if you're special needs, you're entitled to be in school up
Up to
to
21.
up to actually beyond 21. Yes. So
Okay,
it's literally like right at 22.
okay,
Right.
thank you for
That's
that.
what I was saying, just to
Okay,
remember.
thank you. Any comments, feedback, statements from anyone? Mr. Daly, are you putting your hand up again, or are you taking it down, or is it just up there?
I was taking it down. I'm sorry.
Okay. What do people think about the events that I mentioned? Should I take out anything, or you think that there should be something else in there? Do you have an idea for a topic of conversation or guest speaker? Any comments? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. It's 8:51. Is there any new business that we need to discuss? Anyone in the youth that was in the previous youth committee that there was something that you had on the table that you want to discuss, you want to move forward with? There was nothing for education except that CTE forum that we talked about. So was there anything that was in the previous youth committee that needs to be brought to the table? Okay, I hear nothing. So I just want to welcome Miss Charles, Miss Buffalo. Am I saying it right? I don't want to butcher your name. Miss
No, it's Buffalo. Thank you.
Buffalo?
Yeah.
Okay. Miss Duncan, I want to welcome you guys to the committee. There was just some things, I know it's not the the optics we're looking for on your first night, but I do hope, you signed up. I do want to hear your feedback and, want you to really participate within the group. For the group that was in the youth committee, I just hope that you guys are willing to work with me, and I will look for your expertise and guidance. There's nothing that you can say to me, nothing is personal here. I do listen to people and hear they complaints or statements or what, and how you feel. And my old education group, glad to see you guys. Thank you for coming out and sticking in here with me. And I hope that we have an excited year. I'm excited. I also sent you guys a document. It was the strategic plan that I have for the year. I want you to take a look over it. If you think that there's any corrections, anything that needs to be changed in there or to be added, please let me know. One thing I like is feedback. And I think, feedback gauges engagement. And I want us all to be engaged in what we're doing, and feel free to speak up about, if you see something that we're doing or we just need to edit it or what. So please take a look at that strategic plan and let me know if it fits in. If there's parts that I need to clarify that speaks more to youth, just feel free to write that, highlight it, send it back to me, and I will incorporate whatever changes, but that is just my priorities, and that's going to guide us through the year. Okay? Now, is there anything else before we signed off? Okay, so I thank you guys for coming. I'm going to ask, can someone please put a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting? No one wants to go?
Marilyn Mecker, I do move to have the meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Can someone second it, please?
Second,
Your name? You have to give your name, Mr.
Osney Lewis, second the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lewis. And with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you all a very good night and enjoy the weekend.
You too.